So that means you can't get these things without eating them. How many essential carbs are there? None. None of these are essential. These are, without them you will die. You will get sick and die. Ancel Keys, by the way, did generally follow his low-fat suggestions. He was very, very, very sick before he died for a long time. He died a miserable death, much like he doomed a lot of other people to. So you must have these. Guess where you can get all of these things? Which foods?
Oh, I read your spreadsheets on meat.
Yeah, basically this. These have some, but this will have everything that you need. If it had a face and a soul, guess what? It had all the essential amino acids that you need, and most of them, if they were raised correctly, will have all the essential fatty acids that you need. In fact, all of them, if they're raised correctly, have all of that. So guess what? Animals come with everything that we need. What do vegetarians have to do? We gotta mix and match, right? I had to do that for 15 years. You have to try to get a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And guess what? They never tell you about being a vegetarian. They never tell you this. You can get protein. They're always worried about protein. Protein, protein, protein. Nobody ever worried about fat. What they don't tell you is if you spend a couple decades as a vegetarian, you will suffer spinal degeneration and have back problems for the rest of your life. They don't tell you that. Until you have it, and you find out that all the other vegetarians you know have that. And so, after 15 years, I've got a pretty crappy back. You know, and it can't prove causation. There's lots of other things in there too. I'm sure part of it's genetics, etc. Anyhow, structure and fuel, protein and fat. Let me give you a little analogy. So if we're building a house, let's say the protein is the framing. You guys know the framework for the house? You're creating that frame.
Like the wood structure?
The wood structure.
Okay,
yes. Can you see it?
Yes, I suppose it could.
And then,
it would be stronger.
that's not enough for a house, especially not in this climate, right? We're going to have to put on some roof and walls and foundation and stuff like that. And that's going to be our fat. And now we have a house. And now let's say you want to be warm, you have a fireplace, that's going to be our carbs, right? Now it's going to be cozy inside your house. Make sense? If I take away the walls and the roof, not a very good house. If I take away the frame, that house is not going to stand up. So if I'm living on just the carbs, you know, I've got a fireplace but no house around me. Now, I could always, if I ran out of carbs, I could take down some of the structure and burn it, right? I could take out a piece of wall or take some 2x4s out of the wall, throw it in the fireplace and burn it, and it will work. It's not optimal, right? So Atkins said, hey, these are essential, that's not, let's forget about that, let's just focus on those two things. And that's good for a sedentary human being. If you're not doing anything active and you need to lose weight and you're having some health problems, probably cutting carbs out 100% is going to be a good idea. I don't follow Atkins because I'm not a sedentary person. We are continuously breaking down this structure, and if I have to burn my proteins and fats for fuel, I'm not getting to use them to rebuild my structure. So I do want carbohydrates, but only enough carbohydrates to preserve my fat and protein, so I'm not breaking down my body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but isn't there other reasons, like, that you would eat vegetables and fruits? Like there's so many nutrients and vitamins.
Maybe. Not proven though. You can't prove it. It's a tough thing. So there's, you know, and people, we hear this all the time, so people will say, well, kale has been shown, and it really depends who you talk to, because I've heard the opposite as well, but you read an article, some kind of research article that says kale has per gram more protein than beef.
Kale?
That's surprising. Hard for me to believe, but people say that. But here's the thing, it comes down to, ultimately, bioavailability. Unfortunately, most of the protein in plant form is not so bioavailable. My body has a hard time breaking it down. Guess where it comes very highly bioavailable? All the vitamins and minerals? All the vitamins and minerals can be found in a very bioavailable form, and guess where? In anything that had a face of the soil. Because guess what? They were using those vitamins and minerals, and they had broken it down already to use. So it's a ready-made, it's just like it's perfect for us. So, again, this is coming from a guy who doesn't like red meat very much. I went 15 years without it, didn't miss it. I don't particularly love meat, but my body really has a different opinion on that. So, it's a perfect packaging for all the things that we need. Can we get something over here? For sure. I eat berries, I eat vegetables and stuff like that. Do we need it? I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical. We don't have any studies that show that. Am I going to keep on eating vegetables? Yes, I think so. I think my ancestors did. Again, I have to look at those foundational principles. Did hunter-gatherers eat vegetable matter? Most of them, not all of them. And most of them did. Some survived without vegetable matter. And quite frankly, I just like berries. I gotta eat something.
Yeah.
I gotta have something. So my body seems to like those things, so I keep eating those. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, also, if they're saying that, like, say if you were to have a pound of meat, like, I mean, someone could eat a pound of meat, but who's going to eat a pound of kale? Like, you know how much kale would be a pound? It would be like a garbage bag full, right?
Yes, that's the other thing. It's very dense. Very dense nutrients. Very easy for your body to absorb them. And very good for you. So here's your little test. I'm going to put you on a desert island. You're going to be there for 5 years. You can only take 2 macronutrient groups with you. As much food as you like, but only from 2 macronutrient groups. And in order to survive, which macronutrient groups are you going to choose from?
Seems protein.
So I need a coconut tree and a fishing net, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Somebody, some wise ass, at some point in time answered that they would take a pizza, and I have to grudgingly say they would probably make it. Because though it's kind of high in carbs and it may not be quality protein, it will have protein and fat. They will probably survive the 5 years on pizza. I don't like to say it, but they'll probably make it. But yes, in general, coconuts and a fishing net will get you a long way. You'll probably look better than a pizza person. So you need protein and fat. These are essential. This, I'm driving this point home because what I'm going to tell you next. For a meal to be complete from the perspective of your body.
That's what I need.
Because what we do when we're eating is we're fueling our body. We're giving our body the nutrients it needs to operate. What must you have in that meal for it to be a complete meal?
All 3 proteins and fats.
You must have protein. You must have fat. Carbohydrates optional, not essential. If I'm training, and I only eat protein and fat, what am I going to do with those? I'm going to burn them for fuel. It's not going to work for my structure, so if I'm training, I probably want to throw that in there as well. Okay. Not because it's essential, but because it preserves these 2 elements. So if I see a meal in somebody's food journal that does not include one of these 2 things, or both of these things, what am I going to see in their next meal? I'm going to see that they're eating again very shortly after, and they're probably eating the wrong things. They're probably eating it. Because when your body doesn't get the nutrients that it wants, it craves carbohydrates. And we can see this pattern. It's too bad Codex isn't here. She keeps a really nice journal, and she's like, oh, last night I went out and I just splurged at a restaurant, and just, you know, I ate some this and some of that and had a beer, and I said, I bet you didn't have enough fat in your earlier meals. And sure enough, we went back, it was carb, 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 binge, right? And on the days when she had good fat and protein in the early meals, no binge. Because your body, if you don't get one of these 2 things, is not satisfied. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Easier said than done.
I shouldn't have erased that list. We needed that list, protein and fats, right? They're very short items, but you need items from each of those lists in every meal that you eat. Or else your body's not happy with you. Good?
Yeah.
So one of my questions is that, like, how is coconut milk and all that not considered processed food? It's still,
Yeah, because it doesn't have to go through a high heat process, it doesn't need any chemical additives, so it's kind of like the olive oil. Olive oil is processed, right? You cast it, but it's a very gentle processing that doesn't change the nature of the fats and the proteins in that. So it hasn't been chemically altered, or what heat alteration is a chemical alteration. So it hasn't undergone any chemical alteration. It's still in its natural form.
but still, like, for example, it's canned or so for like, there is a certain shelf life to it. They must be adding some kind of preservative to like.
Some of them do, some of them don't. The ones I get from the source do not have preservatives. I can't do the preservatives. I get a little bit sick to my stomach. The guar gum is what you'll usually see as a stabilizer in there, but I can't do it. And some he gets really, really sick with the guar gum. So we have to do, it's just water and coconut milk. So fats last for a long time, saturated fats. Right? Saturated fats are very stable. Olive oils are unsaturated, it's not as stable.
Shit.
And
Fryer.
yeah, lard, people would keep lard at room temperature in buckets, right? Saturated fat is very, very stable because it's saturated. So this gets into chemistry and rancidity, right? The way things get rancid is because there's, so do you know what unsaturated, polyunsaturated means?
No.
So
I don't know.
monounsaturated?
I don't know polyunsaturated.
Like, I know monounsaturated is like olives and things like that.
Okay, so here goes a really, really basic, I did really poorly in chemistry. I didn't understand chemistry or appreciate it until I started doing nutrition stuff. So here's our little molecular chain of our fat, and a saturated fat, so let's say, it's 4, is it a carbon is 4?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so let's say we have a carbon as a base here, maybe these are hydrogens, which are 1. So carbon atoms want to attach in 4 places, and that would be saturated. So this is my chain of carbons, so the middle ones are carbons, and here's little hydrogen atoms connected. This is a fatty acid chain that is completely saturated. There's no spot to connect to those carbons because they all have filled up all their little locking stations. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, olive oil is a monounsaturated. It has one spot that's open, and anything can go there, right? That can connect to it. So rancidity is usually oxygen gets in there and connects to it, and now that becomes poison to our system. So we can have olive oil here, there, but if we leave it out in the light, it's going to go rancid. It's going to connect to an oxygen atom, and then we get in trouble, and it's no good for us. So olive oil is less stable than lard or butter or coconut milk because those are saturated. They don't, it's hard for the oxygen atom to get in there. We have to break all the carbon and then squeeze its way in. It's hard to do that. Make sense so far? Polyunsaturated, like canola oil, stuff like that, they've got several connections open. And those ones are going to go rancid really fast. You have to be really super careful with these. And so that's all that it means when I say saturated, unsaturated. It's, are there connections there? And so coconut milk doesn't go bad very easily if it's saturated.
I've been hearing a lot about duck fat.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's just like lard and stuff. Animal fat.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be saturated primarily. You guys have to run?
Apparently.
All right. Okay, so we should probably leave off there. That's been about an hour. I didn't get to the glycemic index, but those were great questions.
I want to see about inflammation too. I was reading your, that's a very long spreadsheet. Was that a
Oh, the
course?
life program, like, so she that's like,
Yeah, that's a 10-hour course that I taught. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It felt like it. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take a break now. I'll try again.
Yeah, well, I hope that the resource helps. There's a lot of
Yeah, there's a lot
links
of
to a lot of
stuff
stuff in there. I tried to throw in everything that I could think of that would be helpful for you. And if you have questions about the resources, I'm happy to answer. All right.
Thanks,
Have a
Gary.
good Justin.
See you guys later.
There's a
See you
lot
guys
there.
later.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, any general questions?